Good morning. I'm Catherine McKenna, Minister of Infrastructure and Communities and Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre. I'd like to welcome you to the beautiful Dominion Arboretum on the Central Experimental Farm in my riding of Ottawa Centre. We're located on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. This amazing urban farm has been the focus of scientific exploration since 1886. 5 years ago today, I was in Paris with the Prime Minister representing Canada in international climate negotiations. Les Canadiens devraient être fiers du leadership dont nous avons fait preuve pour contribuer à la réalisation d'un accord de Paris ambitieux où, pour la première fois, tous les pays du monde ont accepté de faire leur part pour lutter contre les changements climatiques. Over the past 5 years, we've continued to demonstrate leadership here at home, working with provinces, territories, Indigenous peoples, and with Canadians. We've always said we need to take additional climate action, and that's why I'm very excited to be here today. Climate action is about good jobs, Canadian innovation, clean air and water, more inclusive communities, and, most of all, a better future for our kids. And if we take the same approach to the climate crisis as we are to COVID-19, showing urgency, focus, science-based decisions, working together across borders, and focusing on the planet we want for everyone, we'll win the race against climate change too. Je suis très heureuse à passer la parole au ministre Guilbeault, un leader fort en matière d'environnement, un collègue formidable, une personne qui a aussi apporté son expertise à notre plan pour le climat et la croissance propre. Merci.
Not small, I'm just vertically challenged. Bonjour, merci beaucoup Catherine, c'est très gentil. Merci à toutes et à tous d'être ici. J'aimerais débuter également en mentionnant que nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel non cédé des Algonquins Anishinaabe. Je serai de peu de mots aujourd'hui parce que nos actions parleront d'elles-mêmes. It's no secret that I joined this team because I strongly believe that we needed to do more to address climate change. It's a team effort, and this vision is fully shared by my colleagues who are just as concerned about this issue as I am, who are just as motivated and as determined to act. Les Canadiennes et les Canadiens nous ont élus avec une véritable préoccupation pour l'urgence climatique, notamment les gens de mon comté que je salue d'ailleurs. Aujourd'hui, nous agissons en ce sens. Nous nous donnons les moyens de nos ambitions. Comme nous écoutons la science pour lutter contre la pandémie de COVID-19, nous écoutons également la science pour lutter contre les changements climatiques. Comme nous luttons ensemble contre la pandémie, nous lutterons ensemble contre les changements climatiques. De notre cellule familiale, en passant par les communautés, les entreprises et jusqu'aux accords entre différents pays. We will do this by building on our strength, and most importantly, by making a place for everyone in this transition, from transportation to housing to energy to industry. We are listening to science to avoid the worst risks caused by this global crisis. Les changements climatiques sont la plus grande menace pour notre santé et notre économie, mais c'est également une très grande opportunité. Ce plan que nous annonçons ce matin nous permettra de contribuer à la création d'1 million d'emplois d'avenir et durables au Canada. Parlant d'avenir, il est fréquemment question de dette dans le discours public ces jours-ci, mais on parle trop peu souvent de la dette écologique. Les coûts de l'inaction écologique seraient immenses et légués à nos enfants et nos petits-enfants, sans parler des coûts inestimables reliés à la perte de biodiversité et à la santé qui n'ont simplement pas de prix. At the end of 2020, an exceptionally difficult year, we are doing what is necessary to take care of ourselves and the planet. We are doing what is needed to move full force ahead in the energy transition, to give ourselves a better future, and I'm confident that this will allow us to look forward with confidence. Pour conclure, il y a quelques années, j'ai pu collaborer avec la Nation CRI sur la question des changements climatiques, et en reconnaissance de cette collaboration, le grand chef du Grand Conseil des CRI de l'époque, Matthew Kumkum, m'a remis une paire de raquettes en me disant « dans l'espoir que nous puissions encore les utiliser ». Ces raquettes se trouvent maintenant dans mon bureau ici à Ottawa et je suis fier qu'aujourd'hui, nous franchissons un pas immense vers l'atteinte de cet objectif. Thank you very much. I would now like to turn the floor over to my esteemed colleague, Minister Jonathan Wilkinson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi. COVID-19 has been a consuming preoccupation, and for that reason, it certainly can be difficult, I know, to concentrate on challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. None is bigger than climate change, and as we build back from the pandemic, our mandate from Canadians is to do this in a way that helps them to achieve both their environmental expectations and their economic ambitions. The clean growth economy is not some utopian idea of something that might happen far off into the future. It is a rapidly accelerating reality. The biggest companies in the world, the leading investors in the world, dozens of countries, hundreds of cities, and many millions of consumer transactions are pushing us in the same direction. Nations around the world are being active and creative in their efforts to attract investment that will create jobs that will thrive in a low-carbon economy. Movement has been brisk in Europe, in China, and imminently the world's largest economy just to the south of us will set a new course designed to make America a clean energy and clean technology winner. We should all be allies in the fight against climate change because climate knows no boundaries. But we are competitors in the race to seize the economic opportunities presented by this drive to reduce emissions. Canadians are very clear, I think, in their desire. They do not want our country to be left behind. They are clear that their leaders cannot put their heads in the sand and try to pretend that this change is not happening. They are expecting their governments to help propel change with smart policies to make adaptation easier, to promote agility, and to put our best game on the ice. Canada can be an investment destination of choice for low-carbon solutions that meet our climate responsibilities. But this requires thoughtful choices, and it requires a sense of urgency. This morning, I am very pleased to present to you a healthy environment and a healthy economy. Canada's plan to take climate action and help Canadians build the economy they want and the economy they need for the 21st century. With this plan, Canadians will exceed our 2030 greenhouse gas emissions reduction target under the Paris Agreement. We will establish the building blocks to achieve net zero by 2050, and we will create long-term and sustainable communities in every region of this country. Le plan présenté aujourd'hui donne un nouvel élan au cadre pan-canadien sur la croissance propre et les changements climatiques que nous avons élaboré avec les Canadiens il y a près de 5 ans. Ce plan fait déjà plus pour réduire la pollution que tout autre plan sur le climat dans notre histoire. Le plan de notre gouvernement, un environnement sain et une économie saine, nous fait passer à un niveau supérieur d'ambition en matière de réduction des émissions et nous offre d'énormes possibilités pour attirer des investissements et créer davantage de bons emplois à long terme. Le plan est axé sur la lutte contre les émissions dans tous les secteurs de notre économie. There are substantial new investments in the plan. Some were announced in the Canada Infrastructure Growth Plan and in the Fall Economic Statement. Additional investments being announced today include funding for retrofitting community buildings, support for the production of low-carbon fuels such as hydrogen and biofuels, partnering with large emitters to drive investments in low-carbon processes, continuing to advance smart renewable energy, continuing to advance the rebate program for light-duty zero-emission vehicles, and supporting clean technology in our agricultural sector. In total, the financial commitments made to begin implementation of this plan amount to $15 billion. This is in addition to the $60 billion committed to implement the Pan-Canadian framework. Beyond new investments, Canadians instinctively know it should not be free to pollute in this country. A carbon pricing system that rises over the long term provides clear market signals that encourage business, investors, and individuals to make smart, low-carbon choices. Part of the plan will continue to put an increased price on pollution through 2030 and return the proceeds back to households in a way that leaves a majority of Canadian families better off. And starting as early as 2022, those rebates will be received quarterly rather than once per year. Beyond investments and pollution pricing, this plan includes a large number of additional regulatory and program measures that are outlined in the documents that have been published today. Certaines des mesures de ce plan nécessitent une consultation et discussion afin de s'assurer qu'elles seront conçues de manière aussi efficace que possible. Ces consultations avec les Canadiens commenceront immédiatement. Bien entendu, nous travaillerons de concert avec les provinces et les territoires dans l'élaboration d'outils relevant de leurs compétences afin de rehausser notre niveau d'ambition collectif. C'est un plan qui permettra de créer des milliers d'emplois dans tout le pays, de dépasser notre cible de Paris pour 2030 et de jeter les bases de l'objectif de carboneutralité fondé sur la science d'ici 2050. On a very personal note, I entered politics largely as a result of my concern about the environmental crisis that is climate change and my belief that Canada needed to have a thoughtful economic strategy that would ensure our continued prosperity in a low-carbon future. I was concerned about these issues as a citizen of this country and a citizen of this planet, but perhaps I was most concerned about these issues as the father of two young daughters. This is a plan for all of us, but it is perhaps a plan that is of particular importance to Canada's youth. This is about ensuring that a sustainable and a prosperous future is one that is attainable for them. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. This is a good day for our planet. It's a good day for Canadians. Thank you, Jonathan, for that introduction and for your outstanding work as Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Catherine, we're lucky to have you on the team, and thank you for welcoming us into your riding to the Dominion Arboretum. Et merci, Stephen, pour tout ton travail et ton dévouement. A year ago today, the holiday season was well underway. We all saw each other regularly at work or around town, and people were planning to spend time with loved ones during their well-deserved break. Not everything was perfect, obviously. Nothing ever is. But Canadians felt optimistic about 2020. No one had even heard of COVID-19. Well, things have been tough in the year since, and these holidays will be different. But there is reason to hope as we look towards 2021. On Wednesday, Health Canada approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as safe and effective. Canada has already secured up to 76 million doses of this vaccine. We're expecting 30,000 doses to start arriving next week, with a total of almost 250,000 doses before the end of December. We also have 6 other agreements for potential vaccines, 3 of which are currently under review by regulators. We've reserved enough doses so that every Canadian who wants a vaccine will be able to get it before the end of 2021. Vaccinations will help end the pandemic. But right now, our fight against COVID-19 is far from over. Again this week, far too many provinces reported record highs in cases and hospitalizations. These numbers must go down. Earlier today, Dr. Tam and Dr. New presented new models. The projections show that if we maintain the current number of people with whom each of us are in contact, the numbers will continue to surge, and we could reach over 12,000 new cases a day in January. There is no other way. We must reduce our in-person contacts right now. A vaccine in a week or in a month won't help you if you get COVID-19 today. So my message to Canadians is simple. Hold tight and don't give up. We know how to make it through long, cold winters, and we're going to do that once again. Together with the provinces and territories and Indigenous partners, our government is doing everything we can to roll out vaccines as quickly as possible. In the meantime, I'm asking everyone to continue to follow local public health guidelines. It's really important that we think of our frontline health workers, doctors, nurses, support staff in hospitals and care centres around the country who've been working incredibly hard in difficult situations throughout the past number of months, who are, like us, looking at a long and difficult winter. The things we, each of us, can do every day to reduce the number of contacts we have, to avoid gatherings, to wear masks, to make sure we're doing our part to get through this coming holiday season and through this winter in the best possible situation, so that as vaccines start to roll out massively in the spring, we can get back to normal as quickly as possible, is going to be really, really important. We will get through this if we all do our part and work together. Comme vous le savez, mercredi, Santé Canada a approuvé le vaccin de Pfizer-BioNTech. La réception des premières doses est prévue pour les prochains jours. Nous nous apprêtons à déployer la plus vaste campagne d'immunisation de l'histoire du Canada. C'est un véritable travail d'équipe. Tout est orchestré pour que le processus soit le plus efficace possible. Hier, justement, lors de notre 23e rencontre avec les premiers ministres depuis le début de cette pandémie, il a été question de la distribution des vaccins et des mesures qu'on continue de prendre pour freiner la pandémie. Le gouvernement fédéral a été là depuis le début de cette crise pour soutenir les provinces et les territoires, et nous allons continuer de le faire dans les semaines et les mois à venir. Nous allons aussi continuer de soutenir les familles directement, les travailleurs et les entreprises à travers nos différents programmes d'aide. Déjà, plus de 130 000 petites entreprises ont demandé l'aide supplémentaire prévue dans le cadre de l'expansion du compte d'urgence pour les entreprises canadiennes. Il faut, bien sûr, continuer de suivre les directives des autorités locales de la santé publique et réduire nos contacts en personne avec les autres. Tenez bon. Continuez de faire ce qu'on est en train de faire depuis des mois. Je sais que c'est pas facile. Je sais que ça devient vraiment difficile à encore tenir. Mais nous savons maintenant que les vaccins s'en viennent. Oui, on va passer un hiver difficile. Oui, il va falloir encore faire des sacrifices pour nos proches, pour les aînés, pour les travailleurs de première ligne. Mais nous allons pouvoir arriver ensemble à un printemps et un été meilleurs. Nos travailleurs de première ligne, que ce soit les médecins, les infirmières ou les travailleurs dans des centres de longue durée pour nos aînés, commencent à être pas mal épuisés. Ils ont besoin de notre soutien. Ils ont besoin que tout le monde fasse sa part pour réduire les nombres de contacts que nous avons, pour chercher à éviter les rassemblements, pour porter le masque, pour garder les distances, pour tenir bon encore, pour passer à travers cet hiver. On sait que l'hiver est toujours une période achalandée pour les hôpitaux. On doit empêcher qu'ils soient débordés pendant ces moments difficiles. Nous allons continuer de faire tout ce qui est nécessaire et je sais qu'ensemble, on va passer à travers. Aujourd'hui, je peux aussi vous confirmer que le Canada et les États-Unis se sont entendus pour prolonger d'encore 30 jours les mesures frontalières qui sont déjà en place, donc jusqu'au 21 janvier. Cette décision va contribuer à protéger les gens des deux côtés de la frontière. In moments we're living today, we are all grateful for science. We thank researchers and scientists for their hard work. We trust them and we listen to them. But let's remember that science is not a pick-and-choose buffet. If we trust scientists with our health, as we do, then we must also trust their research and their expertise when it comes to other existential threats, and that includes climate change. There is no vaccine against a polluted planet. It's up to us to act, because there is a real cost to pollution. We're paying the price already with record storms, wildfires, floods, and heat waves, which all carry real economic costs and real risks to our health. The previous government talked about climate targets, but didn't take real action to meet them. We chose a different approach, getting straight to work on cutting pollution. In 2016, our government, along with provinces, territories, and Indigenous leaders, presented the Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth and Climate Change. This plan included putting a price on pollution everywhere across the country, phasing out coal-fired electricity, and investing in clean technology, among many other measures. It was Canada's first ever national climate plan, and we've been working every day since to continue implementing it. Well, today, the world continues to change. Tomorrow will mark the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, which was created to fight climate change and accelerate actions for a sustainable future. Just last month, we tabled our net zero legislation to make it law. Canadians want to do more to fight climate change while building a stronger economy for our kids and grandkids. Clean technology presents enormous opportunities for economic growth and jobs, and Canadians aren't alone in realizing that. By early next year, countries representing over 65% of global emissions and more than 70% of the world economy will have made ambitious commitments to carbon neutrality. With global consumers and investors alike demanding and rewarding climate action, our trading partners and economic competitors are in this race. Like us, they know that the cleaner your economy, the faster and stronger it will grow. There is no time to waste, no time to hesitate, not for our planet and not for our economy. The world is moving. We need a plan that gets Canada ahead, because without it, we'll fall behind. That's why today we are announcing Canada's new, strengthened climate plan, a healthy environment and a healthy economy. To accelerate our efforts, we're investing $15.2 billion through this plan, with more to come. Les Canadiens savent qu'on ne peut pas ralentir notre lutte contre les changements climatiques. Au contraire, c'est le moment d'accentuer nos efforts en vue de la relance pour créer les emplois durables et un environnement sécuritaire pour tous. Lors de la dernière campagne électorale, vous nous avez demandé d'en faire plus et aujourd'hui, nous donnons suite à vos demandes avec un plan concret. Notre nouveau plan, un environnement sain et une économie saine, aura pour effet d'accélérer nos efforts grâce à des investissements qui représentent 15,2 milliards de dollars avec plus à venir. Notre gouvernement a promis de dépasser les cibles annoncées à Paris il y a 5 ans et avec ce plan, c'est ce que nous allons faire. Et nous allons en même temps établir de nouvelles cibles encore plus ambitieuses pour les années à venir. Pour y arriver, nous allons travailler et collaborer avec tous nos partenaires des secteurs publics et privés afin de bâtir un Canada plus durable, plus fort et plus prospère pour tous. Our plan will improve the energy efficiency of homes and buildings to cut energy waste while also helping people cut down on their bills. It will support sustainable food and farming practices. And it will make clean power available across the country, including in remote and Indigenous communities, while investing in clean and affordable transportation, including public transit and zero-emission vehicles. Come January, I look forward to announcing our plan for permanent public transit funding. This plan is about what we can do for families, workers, and industry. Starting in 2023, we will put even more money in the pockets of Canadians by increasing the price on pollution by $15 a tonne per year. At the same time, we will help businesses create and export low-carbon, made-in-Canada products, services, and technologies. Climate-resilient projects are not just good for the planet, they're good for workers and businesses. Look no further than the Ford Oakville plant, which is retooling to make electric vehicles, securing thousands of middle-class jobs. We knew this project would be good for workers and the environment alike, and that's why our government invested to make it possible. For heavy industries like steel or aluminum, there is tremendous opportunity for clean growth. We need to help them decarbonize to remain competitive. Momentum is building around the globe for job-creating projects in all kinds of sectors. And with our skilled workers, know-how, and resources, Canada is well positioned to become a world leader. As Canadians, we get why this matters. We have the longest coastline in the world and a third of the world's boreal forests. We know that working with nature instead of against it is a win-win. That's why measures like planting 2 billion trees while better managing and conserving natural spaces are also crucial to our plan. We don't have to choose between protecting the environment and growing the economy. They go hand in hand. During the campaign, our government committed to exceed Canada's existing 2030 climate target and support new jobs for Canadians. Today, we are delivering on our plan to reach that goal. At the same time, we are laying out new, more ambitious targets for the coming years. Canada will continue to lead in the fight against climate change. Les investissements et les mesures liées à notre nouveau plan pour lutter contre les changements climatiques feront en sorte que nous pourrons créer de bons emplois et faire croître la classe moyenne. Que vous soyez travailleur du secteur automobile ou de l'aluminium, urbaniste ou ingénieur, étudiant ou déjà sur le marché du travail, la transition vers une économie plus propre va ouvrir encore plus d'opportunités pour vous. Quand le Canada est compétitif sur le plan international, ce sont tous les Canadiens qui en profitent. Nous avons une économie à rebâtir et nous avons des citoyens à protéger. Alors, allons-nous apprendre du passé et constater qu'il vaut mieux prévenir que guérir? Allons-nous choisir une économie plus résiliente à long terme? Oui et oui. Nous faisons le choix d'investir aujourd'hui pour que nos enfants puissent continuer à respirer de l'air propre demain. We are at a crossroad, and together we have a choice to make. A year ago, we didn't know the challenges that 2020 and this pandemic would bring. But what we did know, and what we've known for a while now, was the existential threat posed by climate change. Let's tackle this challenge by rebuilding and growing the economy with good, reliable jobs. We still have a lot of work ahead, but with plans like this, plans to protect our communities and grow the economy, with vaccines on the way, there's reason to feel optimistic for 2021 and for the future. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now open the floor to media. We'll start with the phones. One question, one follow-up. Operator.
Thank you. Merci. Première question, Lina Dib, La Presse canadienne. À vous.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Vous nous dites encore une fois que vous allez avoir des cibles plus ambitieuses. Alors, j'aimerais ça que vous m'expliquiez. Vous attendez quoi exactement pour les annoncer, ces cibles? Qu'est-ce qui vous manque encore?
On annonce aujourd'hui le plan concret pour dépasser nos cibles de 2030, comme on avait promis dans les élections de l'année passée. Ça démontre à quel point nous allons être là pour surpasser les cibles actuelles et en même temps, nous mettons de l'avant de nouvelles cibles ambitieuses pour 2030 et on va travailler avec nos partenaires à travers le pays, y compris les provinces et territoires, pour atteindre ces cibles dans les années à venir.
J'ai peut-être pas tout à... Oui, merci. J'ai peut-être pas tout à fait compris. Elles sont où ces nouvelles cibles? Parce que je ne les ai pas vues en lisant tout ce qui a été écrit jusqu'à maintenant sur le sujet ce matin. Et si vous voulez préciser. Et sinon, j'aimerais revenir sur hier et cette rencontre avec les premiers ministres sur les transferts en santé. J'aimerais bien comprendre votre échéancier. Vous êtes en train d'annoncer aujourd'hui quelque chose qui n'a rien à voir avec la COVID. Mais pour ce qui est de la discussion sur l'augmentation des transferts en santé, est-ce que ça devra attendre la fin de la pandémie?
Tout d'abord, les cibles pour les années à venir vont être plus ambitieuses. On parle de entre 32 et 40 % de réduction des gaz à effet de serre à partir de 2005. C'est exactement ce qu'on est en train de mettre en place, un plan pour dépasser les cibles de 2030 et être encore plus ambitieux pour les années à venir. Par rapport à la pandémie et la situation de la santé à travers le pays, j'ai été très content de la discussion avec les premiers ministres hier soir où on a proposé des mesures concrètes pour aider nos aînés, pour investir dans les CHSLD, pour travailler sur les assurances médicaments, pour travailler sur les données puis le virage numérique qui se passe dans notre système de santé, tout en comprenant que cette pandémie amène des milliards de dollars de plus de dépenses pour les systèmes de santé. J'ai rassuré les provinces que nous allions être là pour les aider pendant cette pandémie. Et évidemment, j'ai aussi rassuré les provinces que nous allons être là pour augmenter les transferts en santé au long terme, mais évidemment, ça c'est une discussion qui doit se faire une fois qu'on a un peu plus de clarté sur de quoi va avoir l'air notre long terme. On est encore en prise avec cette pandémie. On est en train de se concentrer là-dessus et de répondre aux préoccupations des Canadiens, mais bien sûr, des discussions sur l'équilibre fiscal qu'on cherche pour les années à venir et les investissements en santé, on va les avoir.
Prochaine question. Operator.
Thank you. Merci. Next question, Alex Ballingal, Toronto Star. Line open.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking, or good afternoon, I guess. Thanks for taking my question. Obviously, it looks like this plan hinges a lot on the carbon price increase or relies on the increase of the carbon price to exceed the 2030 target. But what happens if the Supreme Court rules that policy is unconstitutional?
We know that Canadians understand that it can no longer be free to pollute anywhere in the country. That's why we move forward with putting a price on pollution right across the country. Unfortunately, as you point out, there are some jurisdictions that still don't understand that the only way to build a strong economy for the future is to protect the environment at the same time. There are some places in this country that still want to make pollution free again. Well, we're not going to do that. We are continuing to move forward and doing so by putting more money in the pockets of Canadian families, by increasing the price on pollution as we move forward to make sure that there is a clear signal to businesses, to investors, to Canadians, and to the world that Canada is serious not just about fighting climate change, but about the tremendous economic opportunities that will come with moving towards a cleaner future. Nous savons que malheureusement, il y a encore des juridictions à travers le pays qui veulent rendre la pollution gratuite, mais je sais aussi que les Canadiens savent qu'on ne devrait pas permettre à ce que la pollution soit gratuite nulle part au pays. Nous allons continuer d'augmenter le prix sur la pollution en s'assurant qu'on donne encore plus d'argent aux Canadiens et aux familles. S'il y a des premiers ministres qui continuent de refuser d'accepter que le seul plan pour l'avenir de l'économie, c'est un plan aussi pour protéger l'environnement, soit. Mais nous allons s'assurer que partout au Canada, la pollution n'est plus gratuite.
Follow-up, Alex?
Yeah, just to ask again, I guess, what happens if you can't do that. The Supreme Court says the federal government can't impose a national minimum carbon price on the provinces. Is this plan essentially deep sixed and you have to go back to the drawing board? What happens if you can't do it?
We know that Canadians understand that we need to put a price on pollution, and we're actually returning even more money into the pockets of Canadians' families with that. We know the Supreme Court and the courts will do their work, but there is no question that the political disagreement between those who think we should make pollution free again, and those of us who know that the only way towards a stronger economy is by fighting climate change and preparing for the innovations of the future, are going to stay focused on exactly that goal.
Thank you. Next question, please, operator.
Thank you. Merci. Prochaine question, Mélanie Marquis, La Presse. À vous.
Merci. Bonjour, M. Trudeau. Quelles sont vos intentions plus précises par rapport au Québec et donc à sa bourse du carbone? Va-t-on assujettir le Québec à une taxe sur le carbone?
Le Québec, depuis longtemps, a démontré un vrai leadership en matière de prix sur la pollution. Leur système est très robuste et ambitieux et nous allons continuer de travailler avec eux. Mais non, on n'a pas besoin d'imposer quoi que ce soit au Québec parce que le leadership du Québec en matière de lutte contre les changements climatiques est bien comprise et bien évidente et continuera pour bien des années à venir.
Oui, pour toujours en matière environnementale, en juin dernier, votre ancienne ministre d'Environnement, Mme McKenna, disait, je cite, le plan est de ne pas augmenter le prix au-delà de 2022, donc l'année à laquelle le prix à la tonne était à 50 $. Qu'est-ce qui a changé entre juin 2019 et le 11 décembre 2020?
J'ai toujours dit qu'il y allait avoir des élections avant d'augmenter le prix sur le carbone en 2023. Et évidemment, dans un gouvernement minoritaire, on peut très bien comprendre qu'il va y avoir des élections avant de voir l'augmentation du prix sur la pollution en 2023. Je suis certain qu'il va y avoir des partis avec des propositions environnementales bien moins ambitieuses. Mais nous démontrons à quel point le signal est fort pour les investisseurs, pour les entreprises et pour tous les Canadiens, que nous allons continuer d'augmenter notre ambition pour les années à venir parce qu'on sait que l'avenir, pas seulement de notre planète, mais des emplois de nos enfants et de nos petits-enfants compte sur de l'action concrète, réelle maintenant, et c'est ce qu'on annonce aujourd'hui.
Prime Minister Michael Couture with Global National. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned in your remarks that climate change does need buy-in from all Canadians, and you also made mentions of premiers who still believe that it should be free to pollute. So I want to ask you, how do you get those conservative premiers especially on board? Do you sense any movement on the part of premiers, conservatives, and business as climate data starts to mount?
First of all, I will highlight that business investors and companies right across the country have understood the economic opportunities of doing more to fight climate change. Indeed, when you look at clean tech investments across this country from the private sector, 75% of all investments come from oil and gas companies. Canadians know the future is in fighting climate change and protecting our environment while we grow the economy. Businesses know the opportunities and the revenues and the growth that are going to come from having a strong plan to fight climate change. And indeed, we're beginning to see more and more conservative premiers are starting to understand that as well. And I don't imagine that it's because I've suddenly convinced them. What I think is starting to convince them is global investors, is people who are looking at whether or not a jurisdiction or a company has a plan to lower their carbon emissions, to move forward on fighting climate change. That's something that we've heard a number of premiers talk about increasingly, the international economic pressures to draw in investment and demonstrate leadership on climate change. And I know that Canadians are beginning to understand right across the country of all political backgrounds that you cannot have a plan for the future of the economy if you don't have a plan to fight climate change.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau. Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada. Ça fait plus de 5 ans que vous êtes au pouvoir. On n'est même pas prêt, on n'est pas sur la voie là, pour atteindre la cible de 30 % d'ici 2030. Pourquoi est-ce qu'on devrait vous croire aujourd'hui?
On est maintenant sur la voie d'atteindre la cible de 2030. Évidemment, on a eu beaucoup de travail à faire parce qu'on avait perdu énormément de temps pendant des années et des années avant ce gouvernement en ne pas faisant les choses nécessaires pour lutter contre les changements climatiques. On a aussi, depuis quelques années, perdu un peu de terrain à cause de décisions prises par certaines provinces pour réduire leurs mesures pour lutter contre les changements climatiques et on a dû se rattraper. Mais on a maintenant un plan concret qui ne fait pas qu'atteindre nos cibles de 2030, qui va les dépasser pour 2030. Et en plus, on met de l'avant de nouvelles cibles encore plus ambitieuses pour continuer de démontrer le leadership des Canadiens d'un bout à l'autre de ce pays.
Hello, Mr. Prime Minister. Grace Najikoti with CTV National News. Was there any negotiations with the provinces regarding the price of the carbon tax before this announcement? Did you talk to the provinces regarding this and the premiers?
We know that the initial movement on the pan-Canadian framework on fighting climate change was done in partnership with the provinces and with Indigenous leaders. This plan for a healthy environment and a healthy economy was developed for the federal government. We look forward to working with the provincial governments and all Canadians as we move forward. But on the increase on price and pollution, there is a process in place that I think Jonathan can say a couple of words to. Jonathan.
Certainly, as the Prime Minister said, the pricing proposal is a proposal. We will be reaching out to discuss with provinces and territories going forward. Certainly, we have had conversations with provinces and territories, and there is a review process of the pricing system that's underway right now. That certainly will be informative in the conversations that we have with them. And you know, we've been very clear as a government that our view is that the price on pollution is the most efficient way to reduce emissions, that incents innovation, and it is a critical part of the plan going forward. All of the provinces and territories are aware of that, and that conversation will continue. Pardon? En français, s'il vous plaît. Oui. Nous avons les conversations avec les provinces et les territoires sur le prix sur la pollution. Et bien sûr, il y a un processus pour étudier le prix sur la pollution qui existe maintenant. Et comme nous avons produit ce plan, nous avons dit que le prix sur la pollution, c'est un proposal, federal proposal. Et bien sûr, nous allons discuter avec les provinces et les territoires comme les prochaines semaines, les prochains mois. Mais bien sûr, c'est quelque chose qui est très important. Le prix sur la pollution, c'est la chose qui est plus efficace pour réduire les gaz à effet de serre, mais aussi pour avoir l'innovation et de grandir notre économie.
Any timeline as to when you'll have those discussions with the provinces?
Well, certainly I've been talking to some of my counterparts over the last 24 hours, and what I've said to all of them is we should start those conversations next week and the week after. Those are conversations that are important. I mean, part of what we are trying to do here is the measures that actually are in the model that we have developed are things that have been funded to date in terms of federal work. We obviously intend to look at doing more. The Prime Minister mentioned the permanent public transit funding, but we're also looking for the provinces to step up their level of ambition. This needs to be a national project, both from an economic and an environmental perspective, and we will be looking to have conversations with the provinces about how we can collectively do more.
David Thurton, CBC News. A question about vaccines, Prime Minister, we're hearing that the NHL is looking at purchasing shots for their teams. Have you had any conversations with the NHL about this?
No, obviously there are many companies and organizations that are looking with interest at vaccines. What I can assure Canadians is our contracts are strong and are focused on getting vaccines for free out to all Canadians. The priority is, of course, vulnerable Canadians and specific groups. Nothing any private company or organization can negotiate, if they choose to do so, will in any way impact or slow down the delivery of vaccines to Canadians for free, with vulnerable Canadians at the front of that line.
I want to ask you about the two Michaels, just given that they are still in custody. Can you just tell us, do you want their promised national security trial that China has promised, do you want that to be open for our diplomatic staff to be able to be there, to view it? And as well, is there a timeline in your mind about when that has China explained to you about when that is actually going to happen?
What we want is for the two Michaels to be returned home. They have been in arbitrary detention in very difficult conditions for 2 years now. They were arbitrarily detained in retaliation for Canada living up to our rule of law, living up to long-standing international treaties with our closest ally, and it is simply an example of coercive diplomacy. We are working extremely hard to get the two Michaels, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, home safe as soon as possible. And I can say that we are also extremely well supported by allies near and far around the world who have been consistently speaking up in defense of these two Canadians, both because they support Canada, but also because they too have real concerns about the way China has been using arbitrary detentions and coercive diplomacy to try and reach various ends. The global community stands steadfast in support of these two Michaels, and quite frankly, Canada will continue to do absolutely everything we can to get them home safe.
Thank you, and that concludes today's press conference.